You ever feel like you're hustling your face off, grinding every damn day, while someone else seems to have cracked the code and is sipping espresso on a Tuesday morning like they own the universe? Well, here's the truth. They probably didn't get lucky. They just followed the clues, because success, it leaves a trail, breadcrumbs, fingerprints, a blueprint you and I can follow. Today, we're talking about how to reverse engineer your dream life and business by modeling those who've already built it. No fluff, no gurus, just real strategy. Let's decode the map one clue at a time. Hey, my name is Jeff Harrison. Welcome to the
Twisted, Bent, and Exhausted
Entrepreneur Podcast. Like I said, my name is Jeff Harrison, and the woman who just cannot let me finish is my co-host,
Leslie Spohr with Concierge Business Solutions.
Hey, Leslie, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. This is my third meeting this morning already, so that's pretty good.
Great.
Very good, as a matter of fact. And it sounds like you were describing a puzzle that has to be put together in order to run your business. Sounds like to me.
Well, sometimes it is, Leslie. Sometimes people think, it is a puzzle that has to be solved. And sometimes what happens is, and we all do this, is we start to put a puzzle together. We look at the box on the outside and there's no freaking picture. So we have no idea how these puzzle pieces go together. So we spend sometimes a lifetime putting puzzle pieces together that make no sense.
You completely missed my lead in from my promotional for Freedom by Design, which is all about how to put a puzzle together so you can work on your business instead of in it. But that's okay. We'll get it another time.
It actually is a great handoff, because it really segues perfectly into our topic today, which is you shouldn't try to do this on your own. I guarantee you, whatever you're trying to do, someone has already done it in front of you. And those are the clues that are left there. And with your program, you've actually given them the roadmap. It's like the treasure map, and it has an X on it. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So many people get stuck working in their business, right? And then they get trapped, where all they do is work in the business and they're trying to figure out everything from scratch, right? And there's no need to figure out everything from scratch. I don't care what kind of business you're in. Somebody else has already done it. They may not have been as successful as you. They may be more successful. But when you look at some of the highest performers out there, what were some of the examples you had? Tony Robbins was one of them. Who else did you have listed when we were talking about this before? All these people. Warren Buffett is one. Who else?
Are you talking to me?
Yes. Who else would I be talking to?
Because you're already in number 7 of our list of things to do. So
sorry, I don't follow the rules very well.
I did ask before we started. Did you read?
I
did. Yes.
I did.
And I'm like, yeah, but you must have skimmed the good stuff. So, all right. So thanks for joining us today. That's a wrap for today's program.
Start over.
Actually, here I just want to share a moment of my experience of how I did this. And when some of you do not know this, but I was a golf professional for 40 years. I was in that industry.
Yeah.
I know I look much younger than that. That's my younger brother. But anyway, so as an example, what I did is I was one of those athletes who just dug it out of the dirt. That was kind of the saying back then. If you look back, Lee Trevino would say, just dig it out of the dirt. You'll find the answer. Well, I would go to the driving range all the time. And I had this, I still have them to this day. There were these little notebooks, these 3x5 cards on the spiral. You've seen those, maybe you haven't. And I would go and I'd write down what got me to perform at the level I wanted at that day. And so when I came back the next day, I would look at that and I would try to repeat that. Well, what I found was it was always elusive. It was moving around. But
really?
my point was I kept doing this. I kept writing it down. And I got to the point where I was pretty darn good. I went to college on a golf scholarship. I went and played on the tour for a few years. I went on, had a nice career. But this is what happened. I had this hunger to go back and do it again, because while I left the tour and I went back to teaching, I started understanding the golf swing differently. I understood the laws of physics, and that, 1 + 1, no matter where you're at in the world, will always equal 2. So I broke it down into physics, and all of a sudden, that was my successful pattern that I could do. And what I found is, Leslie, I always had to work every day. If I missed a day, I felt like I fell two days behind. If I didn't hit balls or practice, I felt like, oh, I'm behind, because I had to always keep working, because I didn't have a pattern I should follow.
Right.
Well, what happened after that is it made me a very successful instructor. It made it real easy for me to fix someone's golf swing, because I knew, based on physics, that if a ball did something, I knew exactly why it did it. And then I gave them drills to do that. Well, then I started applying the same things, obviously, to my swing, and I was better than I had ever been, and went back out and played again. And I love that. The point being is, success leaves clues. And we can beat our heads against a wall. We can get derailed when we try to do it on our own. And I think back of this is because I always say our mind gets lazy, so we have to give it new clues all the time. And that's what my little book was. It was something to stimulate. It was almost like my dopamine hit back then, before we ever had cell phones or video games. It was my dopamine hit, but it wasn't based on principles. It was only based on, I was a good athlete. Does that make sense?
Well, it sounds like it was based on applications, right? Applying. No.
It was like when I figured out that there were only 3 things that you had to do how to control in golf. One was distance, the other was direction, and the third one was contact. And when I figured out what had to happen to make that work, I just kept focusing on only working on those things. And my game and my students' games excelled at a very high rate. In fact, I even had a program, Leslie, where I guaranteed my students' results, or I'd give them their money back. And in years and hundreds of students, I had one person that I didn't give their money back. I had to fire them because they didn't follow the directions. And it wasn't my fault. That was part of my agreement, is if you do what I'm telling you to do, I can guarantee you'll get the results. And they didn't. And I actually had to fire them and let them go.
Yeah, I use that same philosophy for when I'm consulting with small businesses, right? If you do what I recommend you do, you have a much better chance of hitting success than if you don't do it. And that comes from why? Our experience, right? Yours came from physics and knowledge and applying what you've learned and teaching that to other people. And that's what we all do, right? So when somebody's out there trying to start a new business, whether it's a golf business or whether it's any kind of business, there are other people who have done what you do, and then they leave these little what did we call them? Clues, breadcrumbs. Am I following the order better? Drop the little clues and breadcrumbs so that
it's almost like a road. It's almost like a road sign that says exit here, number 134. Right? It's like, hello, that's a clue.
Yes, exactly. And so I find that people. I think I've told this story before, and I may have told it on this podcast. So if I have, I apologize. But I used to walk into people's businesses and they would say, you don't understand my business because we're different. We're unique. And I'm sure that every small business owner, everybody who gets started feels the same way. I'm doing what nobody else has done. Unfortunately, or fortunately, other people have done exactly what you're trying to do, and that they have succeeded to various levels of success. And so why reinvent the wheel, right? You want to look for those clues. And where do we find those clues, Jeff?
Well, first of all, I want to ask you, what do you think success leaves clues actually means?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you. Yeah.
Well, if somebody is successful, then there are decision points, I think, where they come to a crossroad and they can say, I can go this way or I can go this way. And whichever way they choose, and they're still heading towards success or being successful, those are clues on the choices that you need to make in your business.
Well, I just want to catch her right on that, because I think if you follow somebody as an example, and metaphorically, they hit the lottery. In other words, they just got lucky on something and they won the lottery. They made the money. that is not the type of system that you want to follow. That was based on, that was me playing well enough and practicing hard enough to actually get a college scholarship and play for a while on the tour, but it didn't allow me to sustain. Versus if I said, hey, I want to follow somebody, I'm going to give an example. Leslie, she's had her business now for 15 plus years and it continues to grow and be successful. Obviously, she is doing something that's based on principles. And so I could go back and say, well, what is she doing? How does she handle customer service? How does she handle this? How does she get new clients? And I could basically, and this is why I called it decoding, Leslie, is I could reverse engineer or decode what you did and then apply it to my business. I don't care if I'm selling cupcakes or farming engine or equipment, whatever it is. If I followed, absolutely, if I followed the same thing, I would get good results.
Exactly.
So
and I think
it's not copying, it's decoding.
Yes, decoding it, because every business, there are business fundamentals. There are fundamental basics of how to run a business. And those are the tidbits or the clues that you want to look for. What is true for every business, not just this specific business, but every business. You want to look for those industry benchmarks or foundational things that make every business better. Those make a difference. And how do you find those? Well, you can reverse engineer what they've done, right?
Yep. Right. I think one of the things, I'll give you an example. For me, when I had left the tour and I decided that I was going to be an instructor. I was always raised, but like, if you're going to do something, do it to be the best. So what I did is I sought out the very best instructor at that time, and his name was David Ledbetter. And I would consume all his videos. I would buy his books and read them. They really weren't for me, they really weren't very clear. So I had to dig deeper and understand. Like, he didn't talk in the same language that I ended up talking in simple, basic physics. Like, I didn't talk about dynamic tension and all this. I said, it's like a gate on a hinge. It opens and closes a door, and I would explain it that way. My point being is, I decoded what made him successful, and then I applied it using me. But I had to identify someone first. And at that point, David Ledbetter was the go-to guy. He was the leader. Everybody who won major tournaments and playing well, he was the guy. So the first thing I think you have to do is identify someone who's already successful. Right.
Like us, both of us.
Absolutely. And so the other thing is you want to study their path. As I said, I read his books. I listened to his videos, watch his videos. Anytime he was doing a presentation anywhere near me, I was there. Like, if he was within a 4 to 6 hour distance from me for driving when I was in Arizona, I would go there because I felt like there's something I can glean from him. Even if it's one idea, I would do that. I remember I went to Florida one time and I sat down and I listened to all the instructors. And there was only one guy after 3 days of this that I'm like, this was me, that was worth their salt, that made sense. Everybody else was like, I can't even understand what they're saying. And I'm in the business and we're trying to explain this to somebody. So make sure you study their path and make sure. I heard something yesterday, Leslie, I thought was really good. One guy said he's a world-class consultant. And he's a guy who has, people pay him millions of dollars a year for his mind. And he said, here's what I tried to do when I started teaching other people to do what I did. He said, I tried to get them to be like me. And he said, I'm kind of snarky and, I like to cut up and have fun. And I tried to get people to be like me. He said, no. I just needed to teach. And this is perfect. I needed to teach them the principles that made me successful and then let them put their personality in there. I thought, I almost wrecked my car. I'm like, oh my God, because I was listening to it on a podcast. I thought that was so good.
That's very good, actually, because everybody's personality is different. I'll give you an example of this. I know a lady that does blogs and videos and things like that. And she swears in all her stuff. I mean, swears like longshoreman swears. And to me, and I can swear like a longshoreman too, don't get me wrong. and I came from an industry, aerospace and defense, where you had to, or you weren't one of the guys, right? So you had to talk that way. But in the lifestyle management and consulting business, you can't do that, in my opinion. Okay. So I always thought, and she used to come to me for coaching, and I always thought that was unprofessional that she did that. However, she's successful in what she does because there's a market for that. There's people that respond to that language and that approach. Me, I'm a no nonsense. I don't coddle people, as you know. I help people to the nth degree, but I'm going to tell you what to do and you need to do it. Right. And I'm not good at warm and fuzzy things. Right. So there's kind of an in between. You've got some people that you have to take your own personality and put it in there and make it work for you. She makes swearing work. I can't do that. I don't feel comfortable doing that.
I think you just described this perfectly. The next little clue on that, as far as the power of reverse engineering, is map their behaviors into your world. I remember many, many years ago, I wanted to do public speaking. I was very introverted, still am today.
Me too.
I would love to listen to Zig Ziglar.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah, and his thing that I took away from it, he says, I want to help as many people as I can get their goals achieved first before I worry about mine. He said, because then all mine will be taken care of. I'm going to help enough other people first, and all my goals will be be fulfilled. And I thought that was brilliant. But one of the things he says when mapping your behaviors into your world is you can't be like Zig Ziglar. I couldn't be like Zig Ziglar. He had a style. Now, I could give the same message, but it had to be me. Like, I'm a conversationalist. And I remember one time there was a guy, this is when I was doing probably about, I would say close to 200 talks a year. And I had a guy come up afterwards and he said, I can probably help you with your talk. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, you're just too much conversational. It needs to be more structured. Well, this guy is an SEO expert and he writes content like my 8th grade high school English teacher. I said, well, that's great. And I mean, you don't do 200 talks a year unless you're pretty damn good at it.
Right.
And I said, thank you very much, but this is my style.
Right, exactly. Everybody's style is completely different. And so you have to find what you're right. You have to, I'm trying to say it in a different way, but you have to pick out those principles, those little nuggets that will help you build a better business and be successful, and then modify that. It's like I sell procedures, right? General procedures. Do I expect you to take those and use them verbatim? No, I do not. I counsel people to say, take them and read through them, adopt what makes sense, modify it for your business, put your own name on it, right? And then it's just a foundation to get you started. This is, instead of trying to reinvent everything from scratch, this helps you get started. And that's kind of the same thing that you're talking about, right? It's just to take it and modify it. Absolutely.
As it says, adapt it to your personality and business. Like you said, your gal that you spoke about, she had a longshoreman tongue.
Yeah.
Well, you probably took what she said, which was probably valuable information, but you adapted it to your business and your personality, didn't you?
Well, actually, I taught her, but that's okay. Yeah. No, but yes, she took what I taught her and adapted it to her business, basically, because her approach is completely different than mine. But the principles are basically the same. So she just presents it in a whole different way that works for her and works for her products that she's selling. So that works out.
Well, I'm just curious, because you have a successful business, two successful businesses. Who was your model when you first started doing what you're doing? Because your business didn't exist, but that's okay. We've already explained that. We don't have to have somebody who does exactly what we do. We just have to have a model that shows long-term sustainable success that we say, okay, let's hitch our wagon to that horse.
Well, that's an interesting question, actually, because I kind of have a cool story that goes with that. So when I decided to start this particular...
I was hoping for a cool story, Leslie.
Well, I think it's cool. I don't know if anybody else would think it's cool, but let's hope our listeners do. When I first decided to start Executive Errands, which is my lifestyle management company, um, again, the industry didn't exist and there was only one book on the topic out at the time. So of course, I got it and I read it, and it had a pretty decent outline for how to do this business. And I started to follow that at first. But I found over time that, and I don't know if it's because the person who wrote it had ever actually had a lifestyle management business. Sometimes people go into the hands-on experience. And so I, to this day, don't know if she actually had a business of her own at one time or not. However, I found out that a lot of the principles that she had in there, while sounded good, didn't really work in the practical in the real world. So then what I called on was my mentor that I had in aerospace, who taught me, for one thing, to sell with an empty bench. Which, are you aware of that, selling with an empty bench? A lot of people don't know. What that means is the things and then having to come back and figure out how to get them done, right? You don't promise something and not deliver. You have to deliver on it. And so he would sell business without the staff to back it up. And so I started doing that, right? And when I got one client, I hired somebody. And it took a long time to build up from there, especially in an industry that didn't exist, and having to educate people about what lifestyle management was, why they need it, how they could use it. But we had that conversation this morning in it's not mine, but in a, what do they call those groups? The mastermind groups. Yeah, I was in a mastermind group this morning, and that subject came up, exactly that subject. And so Randy, who was my mentor at the time, taught me a lot about how to sell and how to market your business and how to present yourself in a way that made people want to work with you. And one of the key takeaways from that was enthusiasm is contagious. So if you speak with enthusiasm about your business, no matter what you're doing, that usually will bring people to you also. His guidance and information about how to sell, how to market, how to work with people, how to endear yourself to people, and then modifying it for my personality and for the product that I was selling, which was different than what he was selling. We were selling when I worked for him. Has served me really well. I've actually had people come up to me, leaders in the desert out here, who say, "You're like one of the best marketing and sales people in the desert." And I'm like, I have never considered myself to be a marketing and sales person. I just consider myself to be an operations person. However, you and I both know that when you are out there working with, I lost my train of thought. When you're working with people and you're trying to market yourself, you do learn how to. I completely lost what I was trying to say. Help me out here. Help me out here. I'll come back.
Well, I think the whole idea is, you have to have real world examples to follow. And here's the cool thing. It doesn't matter if they're living or they're dead.
Right.
By that, I mean is like studying biographies. I've read hundreds of not hundreds, but tens of biographies of people who are very successful, and studied them. I'm sure you've done the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, two of the things I was going to say, so I don't forget them. Sorry. Yep. One of them was, one of my idols is Einstein. I love Einstein. The guy's brilliant, or was brilliant. If I could have dinner with anybody, it'd be him, right? And one of the things I took from him, believe it or not, is he only wore black and white clothes. He wore the same clothes every single day because it freed his mind up not to worry about what he was wearing, right? So when I worked on the road 50 weeks a year, I started dressing only in black and white so that I didn't have to think about it. I could pack a bag in no time and get out on the road. And now I will tell you that black and white, for somebody like me, that gets pretty depressing. Right? I can't live without color, but it really works. It does free up your mind. You don't have to think about, okay, I've got these 3 black pairs of pants and these white tops, and that's what I wear. And so that principle from him helped me. And then the other one of my heroes and that I read about and took information from was who broke the sound barrier?
Chuck Yeager.
Chuck Yeager, who actually I met and shook his hand. That's another story. But
it was a fast shaking hand, wasn't it?
It was. Yes, it was, because he broke the sound barrier. A very, very bad dad joke. And you're not even a dad. That's terrible. From him, I took away to be fearless, right? The man was not only fearless, he was crazy. Okay, when you read his biography, you realize how insane those guys that worked at Skunk Works and out there at Lockheed and running those tests in those days were really crazy people. But he did it, and it taught me to not be afraid in business, if that makes sense. It was like, take that fearlessness. Don't be afraid of somebody rejecting you, and apply, just do it. And he's always in the back of my head. Chuck Yeager is like, you can do this. Anybody can do this. You just have to be brave enough to do it, right?
Crazy. As you say this, I have something written down. I have a book here, on a journal here on my desk, and the last thing that I wrote into it, it wasn't today, it was a while back. It said, take action even if I am not in my mind 100% sure of the full road ahead. And that says, and not to worry about what other people think or do, because I can't control that.
That's
just kind of what you're talking about, right?
Right. And that brings
Fearless.
up the other. Right. And that brings up the other person that changed my life and helped my business was Miguel Ruiz of the 4 Agreements. I have right now 5 copies of that book sitting here. I can't tell you how many I've handed out to people over the years, because that single book, there's a couple of books, that one and the 4-Hour Work Week, both really impacted the way I do business and the way I interact in the world. And the 4 Agreements are, don't take what people think of you, doesn't matter, right? Don't make assumptions, be impeccable with your words, like it's like that. And so if you read that book, which I think is phenomenal and changed my life, I think you live a much happier and more content life, and you also can run a better business, because people are mean. I mean, sometimes people are mean, right? And so if your personality isn't mean, you need to be able to figure out, how do I navigate through that stuff? I'm sure you've encountered that too.
Well, it just reminds me of a statement I heard yesterday from a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. If you're not familiar with him, you got to check him out. He's a very successful. Very successful. He speaks all over the world, but he came from Belarus as a kid. His family, was in a 1-bedroom apartment when they got here. Started a liquor store, and on and on. Well, now he owns a global marketing company, an advertising company called VaynerMedia, and he also handles sports figures as far as their agents are concerned. And he has 2,000 employees worldwide, but he started with nothing. The point being is, he said, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. I just knew that I had to do something different. And so, he took what he had and made the very best of it. But he said, this was my point. He said, we have to get over that statement that said, good guys finish last. He said, you don't have to be like that. He said, good people can finish first. And he said, here's what I remember growing up as a kid. My dad told me, he said, you have to be careful as you're climbing the ladder, because those people you meet on the way up, you may also meet on the way down. And if you treated them poorly, they will remember that. And so take care of people.
You know how we used to say that in aerospace?
No.
Be careful, the toes you step on today may be the ass you're kissing tomorrow.
There you go. And she said she didn't use foul language, folks. We're right there on the longshore.
S is not a bad word.
Well, I want to talk about some real world examples of modeling success. And one of them is Tony Robbins. Now, if you're just coming into the world, Tony Robbins is already I saw something yesterday. He has 119 different companies, multi billionaires. Most of these companies will do $1 billion a year, and he gives hundreds of millions of meals away to those needing meals every year. He does amazing stuff. But here's the thing. He said, success leaves clues. His model, role model, was Jim Rohn. If you don't know who Jim Rohn is, it's Rohn. You got to check him out because he was his mentor. And from that, he built a global empire, learning what worked, and he tweaked it to his style. There is no other Tony Robbins. Would you agree?
For me, yeah, he's amazing.
I mean, there's, if you say, well, let's compare him, like he is the gold standard of that. I remember the first time, not the first time, but one of the times I went to one of his programs. It was in Los Angeles, 2016. Crazy that I remember that. But it was the first time that there were 10,000 people at any one of his events.
Wow.
And it was there was so much electricity. But here's the cool thing about this. Even though there were 9,999 people around me, he made me feel like I was the only one there. He is that big of a presence and that ability to talk to one person at a time, even though there's thousands of people in there. Another one is Sarah Blakely. Remember her? She's from Spanx. She had what's that?
I said yes.
She had no fashion. She had no fashion background, but she's modeled her business from Richard Branson. We've all heard of Richard Branson, right?
Right.
She modeled her business after that. Richard Branson had no idea who she was. Now she's on his Virgin Galactic Advisory Board because she is now a multi-billionaire. Spanx are those things women put on to keep their body and tucked in and looking slim and whatnot. She found a need, she filled it, but she didn't do it without guidance. Now, here's the thing. You can answer this. Was Richard Branson into Spanx or women's undergarments? Absolutely not. But he certainly had this pattern of success long-term that seemed to draw her in. And then she did what? She decoded what made him successful and simply applied it.
Well, and what's really kind of amazing about that, girdles have been around for eons. I mean, forever, all the way back to like when they used to tuck in your waist really tight in the pirate days, right? But she took an old concept and refreshed it, and then found a way to market it in a way that appealed. And and sometimes I believe that we make our own luck. But I think sometimes being in the right place at the right time really helps. In the 60s, Twiggy was the icon of fashion. You remember Twiggy?
Sure
super
do.
Skinny, boyish figure, super skinny. And then we went through, lately it was the Kardashians, and they're super curvy, right? But when you're super curvy, you do need to hold all that crap in. You got to squeeze it in there. And I think that her idea of Spanx was brilliant for the time that it came out,
Well, go ahead.
No, that's all. I was just saying her taking a product that was known, reinventing it, mostly so it was comfortable, which is like impossible. And then using his stuff to make it work, to build her business is brilliant, in my opinion. That's the kind of stuff you want to do.
Well, one of the things she extracted from Richard Branson was the fact that she saw how he grew Virgin Records. And what he did is he leveraged the influence of those superstars in a way that grew the brand. Like, as an example, maybe he talked about a particular group to wear a shirt or a hat on stage with Virgin on it.
Right.
And so what Sarah Blakely did, using the Kardashians as an example, and I don't know if this is a fact, but let's say then she said, how do I get my product out there and do it in such a way that someone who is influential will talk about it and give me a massive boost. We used to call that the Oprah effect, right? She'd have somebody on her show, read a book, and all of a sudden it was a bestseller. Well, let's say she gave Spanx to the Kim Kardashian, and Kim took it and loved it. She told the world or she told everybody she knew, which was kind of like the world. And what happened? It blew up her business. I almost think that was the start of influencer marketing, because she was more resourceful because she didn't have the resources.
I was thinking the same exact thing, that influencer marketing probably started right in there as well.
Absolutely. Another one is Elon Musk. Let's talk about Elon, because he really didn't have a individual person. What did he have, Leslie?
He had PayPal. Well, he created PayPal originally. That's where he made all this money to begin with. But he's an innovator, so he's probably creating his own clues. I mean, I don't know. Did he follow somebody's pattern?
He did. He actually modeled companies like Ford, Boeing, and NASA, but took first principles thinking from physics, that physics again, and reverse engineering cost structure of rockets and EVs. So, as he evolved, but at the beginning, he looked at these companies that had been around. I mean, think about Ford, Boeing, and NASA. Have they been around a while?
Yep. Yeah.
Absolutely. So it meant that they were sustainable. They must be doing something right. And so he just took that and said, let's model it and let's apply it to what we're doing. And then, as he said, the first principles of physics to reverse engineer it, and said, I can take a rocket to the moon. I can take a rocket into space. I can do that. And also electric vehicles. So now, like you said, he's not inventing everything. He's adapting. Which is really cool.
Originally, and I could have some of my facts misstated here, so don't hold me to this 100%. But originally, when Ford developed the combustion engine, the automobile, it was an electric vehicle. It was. And I don't know, maybe we talked about this before. Do you know why they changed over to a combustion engine?
Tell me why.
Because the Rockefellers were making kerosene, and a byproduct of kerosene is gasoline. Mm-hmm. So they're making kerosene for all of the street lamps in the day. And then they had all this gasoline they didn't know what to do with. And Henry Ford said, I'll just make a combustion engine, which will use gasoline, and they'll have to buy all the gasoline from us to run their cars. And so there you go. So between innovation and learning from what somebody else was doing and decoding, it's just those people that start businesses all are visionaries, as far as I'm concerned. All of us, even the people that they've just built a job for themselves, is still a visionary. It takes a lot of fortitude and gumption and perseverance in order to build any kind of success in a business. And not everybody will make the Elon Musk, Warren Buffett. In fact, they won't make the Elon Musk, Warren Buffett level of success, but success depends on how you define it, right? Mm-hmm. So by studying these people, I agree, you can find a way to enhance your own business without having to reinvent everything from scratch.
Well, let's shift just a little bit. Let's talk about, things like, hey, what to look for in a model. And I'm going to put up on the screen just because we'll talk about this, is mindset. How do they think under pressure? What do they believe about money, risk, and people? And I just want to share something real quick, and then I'm going to turn it over to you to take it a little deeper. Is this morning, while I was out playing pickleball, there's a young gal, her name is Camila. And Camila used to be a professional dancer. She was ballet. And I asked her what she does now. And she says, well, I'm a hypnotherapist and I'm a life coach or a mentor, motivational. And she said, I found that after I was done in my physical career, she says, all I want to do is help people. So it was a perfect thing to do. That's what she loved to do, is she had this mindset baked into her, is like, I just want to help people. Well, if we put her in a back room in a cubicle, she would fail miserably. Mm-hmm. But when you have someone like that has that mindset, she succeeds tremendously because it fits into her DNA. So look at their mindset.
Right. And I have a booklet and articles and stuff about, do you have a millionaire mindset? right? You want to be able to think like a millionaire. And I don't have all the points in front of me, but there are ways that Warren Buffett and Elon Musk and those guys think. And most of the time, they're not thinking about how to increase their wealth. I think they're thinking about how they can help people or how they can make a difference. And that's something that we all need to take note of, is how can you make a difference? If you make a difference for people, solve a problem for them, offer a product that they really need, create a different kind of a feeling for somebody, just like the life coach stuff does. It gives people a positive outlook on things that they might not find as positive. The money comes from that. You don't have to go out and just focus on the money. In fact, if you focus on the money, you won't make the money. You have to focus, in my opinion, you have to focus on helping people. And so you can correct me if you think I'm wrong about this, but I don't think these big deal guys, with few exceptions, focus on how much money can I make. You know, even I've got to, excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think when, and we all see it, when we sense someone's only in it for the money, we all of a sudden go from being a customer to a transaction, and we sense that.
Right.
It's almost like a dog bit you because he knew you were afraid of them.
Right.
And so we sense people, we're intuitive when we realize, hey, Leslie's only into me signing up with her for the money. She doesn't care about anything. That's only the money. I think you're absolutely right, Leslie.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a friend who's a multimillionaire who's young. He's not even 50. He's been a multimillionaire since he was in his young 40s. I mean, and the reason for it is, well, part of it is that he loves the thrill of the hunt. So for him, closing a deal is like number one on the adrenaline level. He loves to close the deal. He doesn't even care how much money it's worth. He only cares about closing deals. And so this guy doesn't even buy himself new sneakers when he needs it. Okay. He just likes to sell. And so he goes out and sells, and he sells and sells and sells. And yes, people got to make that stuff come to fruition. But he became very, very wealthy because that was the thing he loved to do. And I think when you love to do something, it makes all of this easier. When you pick a business for yourself, you do need to pick something that you really enjoy. And the only caveat to that is be careful picking a hobby to be your business, because you can ruin that hobby for yourself. I know people that make cupcakes in their spare time, and when they tried to turn it into a business, all of a sudden they started hating making cupcakes, right? So you have to find something to do that you really truly love. About risk, I always say I'll walk off any cliff in business, any cliff. If it's the wrong cliff, I'll say, okay, what did I learn from that, and make an adjustment and move forward in a different direction. People that are successful understand that no decision is a decision, and you have to be able to take a risk in business. You know, if it means walking off a cliff, you know, my husband is a Virgo. You may laugh at that, but he is a Virgo. So he is very analytical and has to think through decisions forever. I almost said a bad word, forever. Okay. Drives me nuts.
Go along, Charmin, go.
Drives me nuts. I'm like, just do it. Just go forward. And if it's wrong, we'll change it. You know, why wait? It just takes so long. But that's his personality and how he processes things and how he feels like he became successful in his business. He was a tile contractor for 40 years and he did very well. He was what we called a one bucket shop. It was just him and a helper. He never hired employees. He didn't do anything, but he built a nice life for his family doing that. Right. I'm trying to build a company. So in fact, I shouldn't say I'm trying to build. I have built 2 companies and successful at that. So, but a lot of that's because I'm willing to take a risk. You know, I know you are too. So you have to look at how do people process risk and how do they deal with other people? People are crabby. You know, it's hard.
I think too, and this is something I learned when I was playing golf. When I was younger, I would get upset about, you know, if I missed a shot or whatever. And when I started studying the best players on the planet, at that time, like Tom Watson, Nick Faldo, Nick Price. I never saw them get upset.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm like, well, wait a second. If I never see those guys on Sunday who are playing, they get upset. They would always have this calm demeanor. And I thought, well, I guess I need to be like that person. So that's the other thing is we talk about how do they think under pressure. So then it's a time where you ask those, you kind of ask that question, or as you read their biography is, if, as an example, like with Elon Musk, I'll use that as an example. When he was developing SpaceX, he was down to his last opportunity for success, mm-hmm. for his rocket to launch, or he didn't have any more money. He felt like he was all in, yet he was under pressure, but he kept his cool, stayed positive. So that tells you a couple things. One is, if he would have gotten crazy and stressed out, you said something earlier about things being contagious. That too is contagious.
For sure.
And it would spread through your engineers. They would maybe make mistakes. So being calm and collective, I think, is important. The other thing is, what do they believe about money? Well, you've told me this before. In fact, you shared a book with me, is we don't own the money. It's just a way to keep score. Like it's
energy.
It's energy. And so it's one of those things like Elon Musk. I mean, let's face it. You think about a guy like Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Howard Schultz, any of those guys, do you think they really even think about the dollars anymore? I mean, how many zeros do you actually have to need behind your name before you're going, finally made it, I don't have to worry about paying rent? They don't do that. They just keep focusing on their target. So that's another thing that you say, I need to extract that and make it part of me. And I'll be honest with you, it may take some work. It may be like that friction on you're trying to sharpen a knife blade. There's going to be some friction until you say, okay, I've gotten sharp enough that now when it comes to, I got to put this on a credit card and I know it's going to work and I have confidence, let's do it. That you can do that without freaking out, right?
Right. Yes. Money is, me, I'm a money magnet. I can make money easy. I'm like Midas or Rumpelstiltskin. I can spin whatever, straw into gold. But I believe that, I absolutely believe it. And you can teach yourself that skill. I did it with a parking spot by the door. That's how I started to teach myself, was to say, I just believe that I will always get a parking spot close to the door. And I always do. And it annoys my family that I always do. But it can be Christmas at the mall and I will still pull in and there will be a parking spot there for me because I believe it will be there. And it's the same with money. If you, in the beginning especially, if you focus on lack of money or lack of opportunity or lack of potential new clients, what are you going to get? More lack. Right?
In abundance, baby.
And more lack. You have to focus and believe that, and I'm sorry if I get on my philosophical soapbox here, but I'm really a firm believer in the power of your mind and the positive visualization of what you want in life. And so if you visualize those clients calling you or people walking into your store or the cash register ringing, I used to visualize my bank account at a certain level. And when it hit there, I was a little surprised, but I just raised the number in my mind. And then it hit that and I just kept raising it, and so, and that worked really, really well. It is possible to have everything you ever wanted, but you have to have, you have to believe it, I guess is the simplest way to say it is that you have to believe that you're not entitled, but worthy of having everything you dreamt of. And I know that we're going to talk about habits. And so, because you have better habits than I do, I think that you should start with this one.
Well, I think actually you are already sharing some of your habits that people could say, well, geez, she said some things on there about writing. I should write some of this stuff down. And, I remember like my morning routines, I'm pretty habitual when it comes to my morning routine. I get up and I spend time reading. I spend some time meditating. I spend some time writing. And this is before I start my day with actually having any interaction with people. And that's, to me, it kind of sets the mood for this. And then I also have some learning habits. As I said, in the morning, I'm a big reader. I like reading, and I listen to books now more often after some injury with my eye. But I listen to more and watch podcasts, video podcasts. I love consuming that information. I find myself leaning more into the mindset piece than I am in specifically how to do something. And then the last thing is a delegation style. I used to be the mindset of saying, Leslie, I'll do it myself because I'll probably I can probably do it faster. But I started about 3 years ago in a program and a mastermind, and I decided to say, instead of how, I started asking who. So what allowed me to do is it allowed me to say, well, when someone said, well, you do this, and I think, oh crap, now I got to figure out how to do that. I'd say, yes, I can. Because I would then go out and find somebody who's really good at it, hire them, and let them do it. Right. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm bumping up a little bit against the ceiling because I think, geez, I know all these things, but I really don't know how to do them because I've hired the experts.
Good.
I'm not doing it. And it's a little bit uncomfortable, I'll be honest with you. And I have to keep thinking back to when Ford was drug into an office and they were saying he wasn't competent enough to run Ford. And he said, see that phone on the table? He said, yeah. He said, you ask me any question and I know which button to push and we'll get you the answer. Do I really need to fill my head with all that nonsense when I already know who to contact to get you exactly what you need? And I'm bumping up against that. It's not easy. I can say it, but it's not easy. But it is a new habit for me.
Well, and see, when I was in aerospace, we had what they called military specifications, which we call mil specs. And it would be everything from what's a good solder joint to, how do you run the CNC machine or how you do this or how you do that. The military is great with procedures. That's their mil specs. They have a ton of them. And one of the reasons I was so successful in aerospace is because you don't have to know everything. You just have to know where to get the information. And it's okay. It is absolutely okay to say, I don't know, but I'll get that answer for you. And then make sure you do, for sure. If you don't, then you lose all your credibility. But if you have to, go look for it and get it. Now, real quick before we go to the next topic, I know we're starting to get towards the end of the time. There were 2 other books that really influenced me, and they're still good even today. One was called The 4-Hour Work Week. Can't remember the name of the guy that wrote that. I have a copy over there. I have never forgotten that, which is what got me to the Freedom by Design, so that they can teach people how to work on their business instead of in it. Because there's no reason to work a 60-hour week when you own your own company. Maybe in the beginning, but if you get all the things in place, the systems and the delegation and the right people to help you, and you get all that stuff in place, you don't need to work. I probably work 2 hours a week on executive errands. And it's a good, thriving company, but we have everything in place. The other one was the goal. And what is the goal? Do you know what the goal is of your business, of any business?
I remember that. I remember you talked about that book. Yes.
To make money. That is the goal. However, it does not need to be your focus. It does not need to be your focus, right? If you help people, provide a good product, make a difference in people's lives, make them feel good about themselves, that part happens on its own. So you want to talk about systems, right?
Well, I think we are getting near the end of our time, but the idea of systems, like I'll just toss out real quick. We're in the process of building out or finishing the build out of a pretty cool system for Swing Point Media, which we are a content marketing company. And I can then go from saying, okay, I can handle 20 clients to I can handle literally an unlimited number of clients. That's where we're at. And it's being installed this week. So it's kind of cool because once we understood the system, we just built it bigger that it says, okay, it still hits all the points, but now it can handle more, right? It's like a assembly line. It can handle more.
Right. Yeah. You have to have systems in place and you have to have automation, right? And you have to have policies and procedures and you have to have good employees. I mean, there's a lot or people to help you. There are a lot of things that one needs in a business. and trying to prioritize those things and figuring out what's best for you, best fit for you, is where we come in, right? That's where we come in to help people make those decisions, because there is a plethora of opportunities and products and ways to do things. Should I talk about the cat? No, I should not talk about the cat.
Well, I think it's
1,000
one of those
ways to skin a cat.
yeah, I think it's one of those things. Yeah, the animal protection right agencies get in touch with us, but
PETA.
yeah, it's one of those things. Again, what we look for in a model: how did they scale?
Right.
Not how do you scale, because that could be that unlimited. Like, well, I could do this, I could do this. It's like, how did they scale? Let me decode how they scaled and do the same thing. It's just a little twist on words. Not how do I scale, how did they scale? Because they are your model who already have the level of success you're looking for. We're not looking to recreate the wheel. We're looking to decode what they do and adapt it into our business.
Well, and that was part of the conversation of this morning's meeting was, how do you scale your business? How do you take on believe it or not, most lifestyle management companies across the country, I would say, have anywhere from 10 to 20 maximum clients. We have several hundred clients. And when you think about the amount of data, tasks, schedules, appointments, things that you have to manage for every single one of those clients, it would be impossible to do without a software system, without a database that you can manage all that, which is what makes us successful and allows us to scale unlimited. And that's what I told them this morning, which most of the people in that room already have my software. But, I'm just saying, they said, what sets you apart? That's what sets me apart. That and the procedures, I would say, are the two biggest things that makes me successful. So if you're looking for your own business, I would recommend some kind of a decent system and procedures for sure.
Yeah, the other one is, we talked a little bit about managing your time and also hire people that can do what either you don't like to do, but find out how they did it. How did they manage their time? How did they hire the people that set them apart? Because again, we can open up that Pandora's box, and there could be 1,000 different reasons or 1,000 different answers on how to manage our time and how to hire. But we are modeling someone who is already doing or have the level of success we want. We're looking for those clues of success. So keep that in mind as we work through this. It's not, we want you now to go to figure this out. No, we want you to look at the people that you want to model and decode what made them successful and apply and adapt it to your business.
Right.
Let's go to the next one, which is storytelling. How did they position their brand and share their mission? As an example, it's like, how does Apple, how does Steve Jobs tell his story? How did he position his brand? We don't want to lose Leslie.
I had to mute myself for a minute to cough.
Oh, I thought that was the quietest cough I've ever heard.
That's because I muted
it. Not heard. But, if you think about Steve Jobs, what did he do? It was always, we kind of go back to that Einstein thing. He was always in that black turtleneck. Well, apparently the story goes, I'm not sure how factual it is, but he bought this for his staff. Nobody else wanted to wear them. He says, I'm going to wear them. So he wore it all the time. He had that black mock turtleneck, and he had jeans on, and he would come out and talk about his product. But his whole thing was lifestyle. It wasn't about the phone. It wasn't about the iPod. It was about the lifestyle. And that made that a lifestyle brand, which is still to this day incredibly valuable. I said that twice because it's really valuable. So, how did they position their brand and share their like, how do you position your brand and how do you share that mission?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you.
Oh, you're asking me.
Yeah. How do you position your brand? Because you can't be everything to everyone, right?
No, we absolutely can't. And you have to make that decision up front, right? You have to decide. Everybody says, you say, who's your perfect or target client? And they say everybody. And I'm like, no, you can't have everybody because it's impossible. We offer a luxury brand in my lifestyle management business. We offer a luxury brand. And in the beginning, when we were out there marketing and positioning, people would call me up and yell at me on the phone and slam the phone down. What do you do for poor people? They're not my market. There are people out there that support fixed income households. That's not us. Not because I don't like them. I do like them. I would love to be able to help them. But our brand is not designed for that. And so, unfortunately, we can't. Now, you could say, well, can you make two brands then? Because I thought about that too. But you can't exactly go out and charge a price point to one type of client and a lower price point to another one just to get the extra business. You can't. It isn't ethical. And the people that are paying more are like, what am I paying so much for then if you can do it for, $1? So you have to look at how people target their position. And I believe it's based on your target client, your perfect ideal client or customer, and your geographic location and the kind of services in your area already. I mean, we've positioned ourselves to be the top of the line out here. You know that for a fact. You market for another similar type of company, but they're not anywhere. They're not competitors of ours. They have a much different ideal client than we do. And that's fine because they need business too. There's enough business to go around, right? You just have to figure out where your niche is and focus on that.
That's it. Well, let's talk about real quickly, because we are well over time, is the pitfalls of modeling. I'm just going to go through these rather quickly. Is don't blindly copy someone with different values, goals, and market. As an example, if I see somebody who cheats, lies, and steals, but they're very successful, and I model them, it's probably not going to work because there's that conflict because I'm not that type of person. So there's always that conflict, right?
Before you move to the second one, I'm going to tell you that this is like me thinking I'm funny. Okay. My family, I think I'm hilarious. Okay. But my family does not. And so I try sarcasm or wit because what other people do, and it doesn't work for me. It falls flat every single time. Now, people that don't know me very well, they think I'm funny. My soon-to-be granddaughter-in-law thinks I'm hilarious, but my grandson does not think I'm funny at all. So, you have to realize that you can't try to be something you're not. So I agree with you. Go on.
So the other one is modeling doesn't replace doing the work.
That's true.
It just gives you a map. In other words, I can't read a book on how to ride a bicycle. I've got to get on that frickin' bicycle. And Leslie, will I crash?
Probably.
Absolutely, because I'm adapting and adopting something different. It doesn't. This is the part. I think long term. This was another thing that I wrote down this morning when that I have to start thinking more long term, because so many things are like it has a short term expiration on it. I work in the world of AI, and today's model a week from now has been changed, and so. Think long term, because if not, it just doesn't. You're going to have some failures. You have to fail your way to success. And going back to Sarah Blakely, I saw an interview with her, and they said, what makes you most successful? She says, I was willing to fail more than the average person.
Me too. I totally get that.
You've said that before. I'm willing to fail. Some of us, and I've had this situation, failure's tough.
Yeah, but But you got to remember, you have to separate. A failure is not a reflection of you personally, or you, and it shouldn't affect your self-worth. I think that's where people run into trouble with this stuff, is that they think any negative or any negative response or failure is a personal affront, and it's not. Yeah. It's an opportunity to learn how to answer the objection and how to do it better the next time. It's always a learning opportunity every single time. And if you don't fail and if you don't get rejected, you cannot have true success, because you're just going to kind of go along on a smooth, kind of a a pond. You're never going to get to the ocean because you're not going to earn that bigger boat. I don't know if that metaphor even works, but I'm just saying that.
Folks, I'm sorry, I don't even know what she's talking about. No, I'm just
she
kidding.
doesn't even know what she's talking about.
I'm thinking I'm on Walden's Pond at a moment. Yeah, it's really smooth.
You're using old examples. So, what I'm saying is that you have to fail in order to find the right path and to make the right decisions and to move forward. And I always counsel people, I need you to pretend that your work persona is somebody different than you. Separate them. Literally, your work persona is one thing and your personal persona is somebody else. And just so you have like a force field. You don't take it personally. What can I learn from this? What can I say next time that makes them say yes? What better path should I have taken? That's how you succeed.
Well, there's a little 3-word phrase, and it's and I'm going to twist it around a little bit, because so many people say, when I have what I'm looking for, I can be who I want to be, because excuse me, I've got this, because I always think you have to be that person in the future.
Yes.
Right. And we talked about this, the whole thing of modeling: be, do, have. And most people turn that around. It says, I need to have, be, do, or have, do, be. But it's really different. You have to start acting differently. It's, as an example, if you go to work from a factory and you wear a uniform and then you go into the executive offices, you have to be an executive the day you walk in. You have to dress and act like that person. It's different. And that's the whole idea of this modeling is, well, how do they handle stress? How do they think about money? That's what we're talking about here, gang.
Exactly.
It's leaving those clues.
Like we were talking about the lady that swears. When I worked in aerospace, I swore every day, many times a day. Okay. That was the environment and the life that we had. I worked with men. I primarily only worked with men. When I came into lifestyle management, I only work with women for the most part. And you can't talk like that to them, in my opinion. So it was a completely different management style person. I had to adjust my personality. I used to say, you can read your audience, and you need to learn to read your audience is also part of this. You don't want to compromise your own personality or your own principles, but you should read your audience and learn how to interact with them in a way that makes them comfortable. And so I think that's part of this as well.
I like that. Well, let's talk about, there's one last little thing I want to point out, is a pitfall of modeling. Avoid highlight reel syndrome. Look at failures and pivots too. We just talked about that. Look at failures and pivots too. Look at, don't just, because here's the thing. We all get sucked into the fact that, Richard Branson, he must have just been, successful off the beginning. He wasn't. It wasn't an overnight. Look at their pitfalls. How do they handle that? You're going to learn so much more from that. It's like the same, like you've said before, is I'm going to learn more from falling off the bike than staying on it, but it's going to make me better when I am back on the bike. Experience that and say, what can I take from that to make it better? Avoid the highlight reel of saying, well, they drive the Lamborghini, they live in the big house. No. Look at how they handled those failures and how they pivoted as well. So the next one, Leslie, is I want to talk about, hey, some action steps. And one would be, pick 3 entrepreneurs you admire, dead or alive. Now, why does it matter whether you're saying, well, how can I look at somebody that's dead?
2 of mine are dead.
Yeah. Einstein, and who was the other one you said?
Chuck Yeager.
Chuck Yeager, yeah. And well, here's how you can do that is read their bios and watch their interviews.
Right.
Like, you can go back. I love listening to Jim Rohn, because he's the father of Tony Robbins. Like, he knows the message really well. Tony's taking it to a whole new level. But I love listening to Jim Rohn. He has a whole different process. He's not that big guy. He talks differently. Like his
Yeah.
tonality, his pace is so much different. I love it. But
Yeah.
you can listen to those old things, and they're on air somewhere, I promise you. So
Yeah,
read those bios.
I like Brian Tracy a lot and Zig Ziglar a lot.
Yeah.
All of those motivational speakers are people that teach you how to do more with less, do more with less time. I really like that because I'm a believer in management by exception. So I want to focus on just the 20% of my businesses that need attention and not the whole thing. And a lot of people fall into that trap too. They think they have to do the whole thing and they really don't. So, but these guys, these people we're talking about, and others, myself included and Jeff included, can teach you those kinds of things, or watch any of our videos or blogs or educational, whatever we have tons of stuff. So
Absolutely. So the next thing is, this is again your action step. Right. Write down 5 things to do that they do consistently, 3 mistakes they made, and made 1 belief they had. Let me read this again. Write down 5 things they do consistently, 3 mistakes they made, and they believe they hold that you don't, but you should consider. Like as an example, the way you think about money. You're a money magnet. It just comes to you easily and effortlessly in abundance. Well, if you don't think that way, that should be something you should adopt and adapt to, right? So that's part of your homework. And then finally, what I'd love you to do is apply one this week and track your results. Apply one of those traits that, as I said, if you go from working out in the field to working in the office, it may be dressing up to go up. I remember that when I went in the golf business when I was still a kid, and I worked in the bag room. We wore golf shirts and shorts and tennis shoes, and we were dirty most of the time because we're chucking bags and clean up the range and things like that. But then when I went to the golf shop, it's totally different. Right. My shirt had to be ironed. I had to be clean, my hair cut. I had to have my shirt ironed. It was a different thing. And as soon as that happened, it's like I felt like a different person. Be that person. Yeah. Take one of those, right?
Yep.
Any last thoughts, Leslie, before we wrap it up?
No, I think we covered everything pretty well. Basically, what we're saying is learn from somebody else so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, right?
That's exactly it.
And if you don't feel confident in implementing your own research, then by all means find a good, solid coach or mentor or somebody to help you, for sure. Doesn't have to be us, but we're happy to help you. But it doesn't have to be us. Just find somebody that will help you.
It's one of those things, if you're drowning,
okay,
you don't care if Leslie's throwing you a life preserver out into the ocean, or it's, Tony Robbins. You just need a life preserver. Now, it doesn't mean it may not be one of those things that Leslie leads to another person to take you to the next level, if that's even possible, because she can take you to levels that you can't even imagine.
Thank you.
Start with something. Start with someone. As I said, dead or alive. And as Leslie said, 2 of hers, they're no longer with us, but she's still learning from them. And here's my last thought. They say that we are a combination of the 5 people we hang out with most.
Right.
Doesn't mean our friends, although it could be. It says, hey, if you hang out with people that are overweight, you'll be surprised. You're going to be overweight. If you hang out with people who play golf and you don't, get ready because you're going to start playing golf. I can almost guarantee it. But if you hang out with 5 people who are super successful, dead or alive, get ready because you're going to be successful.
I agree, but I'm not hanging out with dead people.
Tiger Woods sees dead people. He's pretty dadgum successful.
Okay, I'll take it.
I mean, obviously, she's just being a cornball, but that means, hey, hanging out means I read their bios. I watch their videos. You're hanging out with them. Because some people say, well, Jeff, you hang out with Tony Robbins, or Leslie, you hang out with, this person. And they're saying, I can't talk to those people. Baloney. Today, it can't get any easier because they're all accessible online. They're all accessible online.
And if it's not, you can check AI because it has it. So it's all there somewhere.
I was going to give you a clue on that, but I won't do that because we've run out of time. Maybe we'll talk about that next time, of how you can use AI to develop your own persona for you to follow. But Leslie, as always, it's been a treat. Last thoughts before we wrap up today?
Nope, I love doing this podcast. I hope you recommend it to all of your friends. There's always good information every single time. And we're here to really make a difference in your life and help you be as successful as you can possibly be. That is our whole point of doing this.
Thank you, Leslie. You have been on tell us what type of podcast it is.
Twisted, Bent, and Exhausted.
We'll see you next week.
Today. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.